The body is a very complex matrix of systems which work individually and collectively. When you get sick and experience some symptoms, how does your doctor tell what is wrong, considering that the body is fully covered with the skin? By looking at the symptoms. The same symptom in one person can mean a different illness in another person. This is the dilemma that is facing health practitioners every day. The headache of diagnosis. In this show, we present you with a medical intuitive who transcends the barriers of diagnosis and treatment and make this look so easy. Watch the show and be amazed.
I am a medical intuitive. I use alternative techniques to diagnose and treat illnesses.
I think according to into yabo research yabo ayikho treatment for lip disease.
This is a God-given gift which is coupled with my training and acumen for physiology and anatomy. Over the years, I've successfully diagnosed and treated illnesses that have defied even the best of some of the medical practices. We all have our life purpose, and this one is mine. When parents give birth to a child, they've got big dreams for that child. They've got big expectations, and they expect the child to follow the normal, natural milestones. But then they start noticing that that child in the neighbor is starting to say mama or dada, and theirs is not saying anything. So what happens when you experience something like that? And then these problems continue. You see, they're not crawling when it's a milestone for them to crawl and all that. So obviously, you can see something is wrong. So this is the experience that most people with autistic children have experienced. So what is autism? When you go to the doctor or the psychologist and they do their scanning and they run their test batteries, and then they give you this big label, your child is autistic. Are you supposed to roll over and cry and know this is the end of it? Your child's future is doomed? Or what does it mean? What possibilities are there to make a difference in the life of that child? So our topic today is looking at that and is going to be covering a number of things that pertain to autism. Make sure you don't go away. And hello.
Hello everybody from a very cold Gqeberha. Hope you stay tuned because we've got a very interesting topic today.
As you know, that our show covers a wide range of topics, and we're actually quite excited to be back again. We've been receiving quite a lot of questions like, what happened to you? We're here. We are here. Okay. So as usual, Nikki is going to be asking the questions on your behalf as we move forward with this very interesting topic. Okay.
Well, our very first question is, autism is seen as a condition that cannot be reversed, but can be managed with drugs and some therapies, as well as changing the diet. What is your view on this?
In fact, for starters, for me, autism label has always been a concern on my side, because it takes all the children that present with certain symptoms that fall within the list. Because remember, for them to be labeled as autistic, they've got to feel off the box.
Yes.
Maybe there must be so many ticks within the box that constitutes the diagnosis or the labeling of autism. So if you therefore out of 8 you've got 5, then that means you're autistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got problems with that labeling because it sort of kind of closes the possibilities, because once you are boxed there, then you just have to do ABC. You are on this drug, you must do this diet, you must. So anything that falls outside that, there is no exploration as to is there something else for your child. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't like that label because it closes a lot of opportunities for children who would otherwise have shocking improvement experiences that I will be making reference to as we go along with it. So I don't agree with the label. Yeah. And while I don't agree with that label, I also don't agree with putting them in that same box. I don't agree with the labeling, but then I also don't agree with grouping the treatment program for all of them. Because remember, with me, in every situation, this one differs from the other.
Yes.
That's my stance. So every child, even within the same family, every child is different from the other. That's why fingerprints, just like fingerprints.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you therefore within autism place them there, because you find that almost all of them are on these drugs, either Ritalin or whatever, and then the diet. Because I've got quite a few of the mummies saying they must. These are the diet because they tend to have inflammation. So there's also that grouping, and then you find then there might be differences in terms of hyperactive or attention deficit. There you might find some variations, but there is a boxing of these children, which therefore makes the parent not to look beyond what else is there.
Yeah.
Because once they've got that label, that's it. So I don't like the label.
Yes.
I don't like the labeling. So that is where I'm coming from. And as we go down with the show, people are going to see why I am saying that. Because it's not just a case of wanting to be different from everyone else. But I've got evidence, I've got my work experience and the results that actually testify to that to that effect. So I don't agree with the labeling.
Yeah.
But the reality is, here you look at your child, you see the child cannot talk. You see maybe the child is jumping on the table and is throwing everything around. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And you see the child is, because they display certain symptoms that you see that they cannot stand the sound and all that.
Yes.
That's the reality that you find ends up putting them in that label. But now my point is, that is the reality. Now the question is can you reverse it?
Yes.
Can you reverse it? Now, as we go down discuss this show, I will be able to show that there are certain, because when they're saying, can you reverse it? Or when the question says, can you reverse it? It is saying, if the child cannot talk, can you make the child talk?
Yes.
If the child is hyperactive and jumping all over, can you make this child stop?
Yes.
If the child is having seizures, can you stop the seizures? So even though I'm not unpacking the different symptoms, but just taking it as a grouped, in a grouped format, the question is, there is a whole lot of them that can actually be reversed.
Yes.
Whether I'm referring to autism or I'm referring to nitpicking certain symptoms, A bottom line is there is a whole lot that can be reversed. But when we get to what is actually autism or what triggers these symptoms, then people will understand where I am coming from with that.
Yes.
So my second part of that question is there is a whole lot of reversal that I've managed to realize in quite a few of these cases that I have treated. So, yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. Okay. The second question relies on the fact that you've always believed that autism is a symptom of something that's underlying. It's not just a label that you can throw onto a child or their mannerisms or anything. Can you please expand on that?
Let me start with my experience of what I have seen consistently with these kids that are referred to me as being autistic. Firstly, autism as a label, as I've said earlier, is just a symptom. It's not a condition. It is actually a symptom of something that is underlying.
Yes.
I'm going to give examples. Now, if you look at children that are autistic, you find something that is extremely consistent with them is audio issues.
Yes.
They've got audio problems. Whether they cannot stand the sound, or they cannot hear properly, or they cannot speak because the speech is connected to the ability to hear the sound and all that. But you'll find that something that is almost 100% common in most of them is audio.
Yes.
Audio problems. Which is what in most cases therefore lead to as one of the big tick in the box.
Yes.
Okay, to say autistic. Now, if you look at the brain, now the brain has got different lobes, temporal lobes
Yes.
on the sides, your parietal, your frontal, you name them. Now, if you look at the temporal lobes, now the temporal lobes in everybody, autistic or not, if you look at the functions of the brain that are located in the temporal lobes, you will find that sound is here in the temporal lobe, because even where the ears are sitting, that's the location of the sound. Emotions are controlled in the temporal lobe. Language is controlled in the temporal lobe. Memory is controlled, so there's the basic, there's a whole lot of others that are smaller, but if you look at the most basic that you find consistent with people that are autistic, the language is a problem. They cannot express themselves. The emotions, they don't know how to relate with people. They will say their thing. If those that are verbal, those that are non-verbal, they can go mad. They emotionally, there's a lot of instability. You will find also the memory. You can't really, but there are issues there as well. So you find these are the lobes. This is the brain part. The part of the brain that is responsible for those functions.
Yes.
So if therefore there are issues with that damage your temporal lobes, you will have issues of whether autistic or not. Just to give an example before we get to autism. People that I have treated with, I'm talking adults now, I'm not even talking children. Adults where you find that they are fructose intolerant. I've found this a lot among people that are fructose intolerant. And then I find that the temporal lobes are affected. And then I will ask, when you have upset this person, and I never ask the person himself or herself, I ask the people that stay with them. And I ask, when you have made them angry, how angry do they become? And you'll find they will say, yeah, you mustn't make them angry.
Yeah.
Because they will jump out of the car while it is in motion.
Yeah.
That's how angry they become. In some cases, you find it's the person himself or herself. I mean, I had a lady who said, she was talking in Zulu, meaning I can jump out of the car while it is in motion. That's how angry I become. And then I realized afterwards, but it was not so bad. Why was I this mad?
Yes.
So they cannot control their emotion. I'm talking normal adults.
Yes.
Or normal in inverted commas in that regard. Because this is where the emotions, rationale, where you can rationalize and feel, no man, it's not really necessary that I should be this mad about this case.
Yes.
I even made an example of a Chinese. They were at the game reserve as a family, and they were traveling in the car. Those game reserve, I mean, in every game reserve, you cannot get out of the car.
Yes.
You must sit inside. In some of them, you must not even roll down the window.
Yes.
So I don't know what happened. I saw this car. It stopped, and then this girl just opened the door, and she got out of the car. And you could see how frantic they were calling. And she got out of the car and she walked in front. She walked in front and she came back. And they were opening the door so that she walked past. And as she was walking past, there was a big tiger. There was a big tiger and they were screaming. But she didn't see, she's just mad. And the tiger came from and it just grabbed her and ran.
Sure.
So the brothers tried to chase, but then I saw they realized, hey, we're also going to be victims to other animals. So they went back.
Yeah.
But shortly we saw those game reserve, those trucks. It followed her, but I understand by the time they got her, she had already been killed by that tiger.
Yeah.
But what am I getting at is, look at that kind of madness.
Yes.
That it clouds the judgment. That she doesn't even think that there's danger. She's just thinking about how mad she is. And just, so that is what happens with people where the temporal lobe is affected. They become irrational, the emotions, which you find is consistent with children that are autistic. Because autism, children, you find that there are issues with the temporal lobe. But I am going to explain why the temporal lobe. What happens in that temporal lobe that ends up causing them to be like that? So, coming back to what I believe, therefore, that I never label autism as the condition. I label it as a symptom that is telling us something is hurting those temporal lobes. And I promise you, it is the temporal lobes. It's not hurting other lobes. Well, the frontal and frontotemporal dementia, which is not necessarily autism. But autism, children that are autistic, you must just go and look what's happening in the temporal lobes, because that's where the problem is coming from.
Yes.
Whether in this particular one, it's this thing that's affecting the temporal lobes, but that is what you will find, that there are different things that affect the temporal lobes, but it is the temporal lobes that are affected that end up causing them to have those kind of symptoms. So it is not itself a condition, it is a symptom.
Sure.
So that is where I'm coming from. And I will give results, I mean certain, not results, but I'll give examples of cases that I've treated where I will prove how different the cases were, and yet the symptoms were all leading to autism, but the cause was A and B on the other side. So that's where I'm coming from, therefore. So my concern, therefore, is, like I've said earlier in your first question, that once the child is labeled under autism, then it means you're not going to look for anything that is likely to make a difference in sorting out, because some causes or some problems that occur in the temporal lobe are actually so easily fixable.
Yes.
But because the label is already given, so that professional or that health professional is not going to look, because this is where the child is. So just give this.
Yes.
Just give this. And yet the opportunity of making a difference without dragging your child, the potential of making a difference once you know what's hurting this temporal lobe. So in my view, neurodoctors together with audiologists and what have you, I think they're supposed to do more than than what they are doing at this stage, just to see what is happening in the temporal lobes of this child. But then again, I don't know how easy it is for them to detect that, because remember they have to rely on what the CT scan is telling them. So if there's nothing that's showing on the CT scan, maybe they don't know where to look beyond that, which is the limitation of diagnosis within conventional medicine. So, but that's my advantage, that in my case, I can see, this is what's happening in the temporal lobe. Like, I will give examples of these cases.
Would you say that maybe autism could be a when the temporal lobes are underdeveloped, maybe?
Whatever's causing the problem, okay? Because remember, sometimes the brain cells will be underdeveloped, or sometimes they will be damaged by something. But this is just making me think of just one example, which I'm not, I had this particular lady in Joburg. She was, I saw her child. There were two children, and the booking was one after the other. So she was the second. Her child was the second appointment. But then while they were waiting, they were playing together, and this one doing their thing and that. So, and then I analyzed it, but then I never got to see them. It was that time when I only got the scan results, not the results, the photos, and I had to analyze and then talk to them on the phone. So I never got to see them physically. So now I pick up and I see that this child has got mucolipidosis, which I will talk about. The reason why she came to me was not because the child was diagnosed as autistic, but the child was having seizures.
Oh, okay.
And these seizures were occurring at night, not during the day. Otherwise, during the day, she's playing, he's active, he's normal like every other child. But at night, seizures. Such that I remember one time she actually sent me photos, a video while the child was being admitted in hospital and he was, having those seizures. But then when I scanned, when I analyzed the results, I actually saw that this child had mucolipidosis type 2. And when I gave her the results, because she never knew about this condition, and the reason why it was even causing her to have night seizures was because it was affecting temporal lobes. With temporal lobes, you will not have seizures that easily during the day. It gives you night seizures. Okay, so she was having that. But then let's go for a break. When we come from a break, I'm going to talk more about this example.
Are you sitting with an illness with no diagnosis, and every doctor in town does not know what is wrong with you? Don't throw in a towel. There's hope for you. St. Mary's Alternative Clinic is a clinic with divine guidance that can do what doctors can't do. Make a booking and you won't be sorry.
Welcome back. Today we are covering a very important topic on autism. When we went for a break, I was giving you an example about a particular case where I diagnosed a child not with autism, but with temporal lobe problems. But the reason why I was making reference to this one in particular was because of the denial from the mother to accept my diagnosis. Now with her, I had picked up the mucolipidosis type 2, but I also picked up that the child was hemophilic, you know?
Oh.
Yeah, so, but it was a very mild hemophilic. And when I told her that your child has got hemophilia, you know, and she became even mad, you know, because I explained what. But then she had indicated that the child tended to bleed quite a bit when not just when he's brushing the teeth, but she noticed that he tended to have bleeding problems, which she never really did anything about, but she questioned, but because the child had hemophilia, you know?
Yeah.
But was a very, very mild hemophilic, you know? So this is the mindset that you find, therefore, that with the way things are and labeling occurs or diagnosis occurs, I find that it is quite a bit of a heavy task for me to start working on the mindset of people so that they understand. Because for me to be able to make inroads into treating, I've got to be able to break through that impasse of acceptance that this is where my child is, so what diet and what not. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, I just wanted to touch on this one because this was now an interesting one of denial. Okay.
But what you've explained now in this case is actually very interesting. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on the experience that you've had dealing with children with autism?
Well, I've got quite a few, and with different causes.
Yes.
With different causes, almost similar symptoms, but different causes. You know, the one that was the first time I diagnosed, who was she from Cape Town? No, she was not coming from Cape Town. But she was out of town from Port Elizabeth, but she came down. She was brought by the parents. And now remember me, when I scan, I don't see the person.
Yes.
I only analyze the results. And in cases of autistic children, they don't bring them because they're quite disruptive.
Yes.
Yeah. So it will just be the parents who will come. So this particular one, both parents came. In most cases, you find it's just the mother. Yeah. But here, both the mother and the father, they came. But when it was time to give results, I realized there is no way we will make any progress with this child being part of. So I suggested that one of the parents must actually go and sit with the child outside. Then the mother said, okay, Dad can go. Because now remember, I allow people to record. So they were recording. And this was also a very interesting one for me as well, because it was my first diagnosis of this condition. Okay. Now this child, it was a little girl, 4-year-old. I detected that she's actually got what we call fibromuscular dysplasia. It was the first diagnosis that I gave to this particular. Now, fibromuscular, but now remember the child is autistic.
Yes.
Yeah. The child does do a little bit of talking, sporadic, but not connected sentences. Talk there, maybe a word there. So she was not totally nonverbal.
Yes.
Yeah. So now fibromuscular dysplasia is a blood vessel condition.
Yes.
Yeah. What happens, and it attacks the arteries. So the arteries, instead of being elongated like this, like a tube, it kind of causes them to twist or to form some kind of molecules. Some of them will bulge out, but it targets the arteries. It does nothing else. It doesn't mean when you've got fibromuscular dysplasia, it will target the temporal lobe. Like I said, that children that are autistic, you find there's damage to the temporal lobe, but I'm going to connect the dot in this particular case. Now, all I'm saying is it attacks the arteries. It may attack the arteries of any organ. Yeah. But it just focuses on the arteries, not veins, but arteries. Now remember, arteries are carrying blood from the heart to the body. Food and everything is in there. So now, but when you've got this condition, it makes those arteries, like I'm saying, either to be twisted. I took time because I was like, why are these arteries looking like this? Because it took me a bit of time to see that the twisting was actually, but in most of her case, in her case, it was not just the twisting, there was bulging. Yeah, she actually had some kind of aneurysm-looking kind of arteries. But, like I've said earlier, when you've got fibromuscular dysplasia, it doesn't mean it will attack arteries that serve the temporal lobes. It may be any, it may be the kidneys, it may be whatever, it may be kidneys, it may be the lungs, it may be it may be anywhere. It may be any arteries. But in her case, the largest area that was affected were the carotid arteries.
Okay.
And on the one side, it was actually bulging out quite extensively. On the other side, it was, but it was not that much. So the problem that was causing autism, in her case, was the fibromuscular dysplasia that was affecting the carotid arteries, particularly on one side. So when I told the lady, the mother, sometimes when I give the results, I wish I had a camera that captures the reaction.
Yes.
Because some reaction you cannot explain or describe them in words. You've got to see the reaction in this person to see how hard it has hit this person. Because when I said this, because she was sitting like this, when I said this, she actually moved forward. And the expression of combination of panic and of kind of getting an answer.
Oh, yes.
Not to autism, but to something that she has had issues with. Because she said, before I could even continue with the rest of what I picked up, she said, my child has got this thing that bulges out. Sometimes it looks so bad, it looks like it's going to rupture. It looks like it's going to burst out.
Sure.
And she said, I've taken her to different pediatrics so that I could get the answer. And she said, the last pediatrician said to me, no, you don't have to worry because, it's not likely to cause anything because, she's still a child. And she said, it bothers me. But then when the pediatrician said, no, don't worry, it's not a big deal, she's still young, it cannot amount to anything serious.
Yeah.
Then I accepted. So the fact that she was taken like this had nothing to do with autism, but it had everything to do with this bulging thing, artery, because she didn't even know what it was. The doctor did not even say if it was an artery, but she said, no, don't worry about it. So that is what blew her mind. And she said, no, my husband has to come. I said, no, but let's finish, because if he comes and you have to go out. So take the results and let's finish. Then I will give you a chance to sit with the child, and then I can repeat.
Yes.
So that's what I did with this couple. I promise you. So at that child of theirs, that is why in their case, in that child's case, you find that she can have some words.
Yes.
She can talk, which is different from the other one who you find, because her case is different.
Yes.
Her case is different. So this fibromuscular dysplasia, and I said, and my concern was, when the artery bulges out like that, if it pushes further and further, it can actually rupture.
Yes.
And contrary to what that doctor pediatrician was saying to her, that no, she's a child, you don't need to make anything of that. To me, it was actually a big concern. I was not even sure if I should actually treat this child because of the risk of that artery bursting when it bulges, when it is bulging out like that.
Sure.
So in the case of that particular child, it was fibromuscular dysplasia. Of course, there were a couple of things because there were other organs that were affected, but I'm just focusing on these carotid arteries because they're the ones that led to her inability to talk properly, but at least she was verbal, and also the emotions, because also emotionally she, because like I've explained earlier, carotid arteries, they serve the brain, the temporal lobes.
Yes, yes.
So when temporal lobes are affected because of the bad supply of blood, oxygenated blood to there, then they will have issues of performing the functions that are located there.
Sure.
So that was, but now the interesting part is the dad came. It was his turn. When we finished, and the mother was crying. Oh, she was crying.
Shame, man.
She was really very emotional, And like I'm saying, that what made her to be so emotional was not autism, but was the discovery or giving an answer to something that has bothered her for so long, and yet it was just treated as trivial. Meanwhile, it was such a serious thing.
Yes, yes.
And then the dad came, and because she said, my husband has got to come because he's the one that asks questions that know, and I could see that I could relate to what she was saying when it was 10 to talk to him.
Yeah.
Because while he listened and he was engaging, and I was telling them, because it had also to do with the bowel function, the digestive.
Yes.
It also had to do with the digestive system, because I also mentioned what were the issues there, and so on and so on. But the interesting part was, I could tell from him that, nah, it's not possible that I can give this kind of diagnosis. And he just accepts it. Those people that you see, they just want to ask questions, not with a view to understanding, but with a view to cornering you.
Yes.
You know those type of people who you find, even if you give an answer, they don't hear what you are saying, because they're looking at, the main objective is to corner you.
Yes.
Because after we discussed, and it was a longish discussion, and I would answer this and then he would ask, and then he asked me if this fibromuscular condition can be detected by the genetics. And then he asked, I said, of course. I mean, that's what they specialize in. So even the terminology is coming from whichever doctor or whoever made this finding, but he was working on because it's a genetic problem.
Yes.
It's a genetic condition, and it's a progressive condition. I said, of course. I mean, you can ask your doctor to do further tests And then he asked, which gene does... I said, I don't get into such detail.
Yeah.
I said, that's not my... I said, which gene and how what happens to that gene so that it... I said, I don't waste my time with that, with that kind of thing. That you will be able to ask your doctor to get from the genetics, because the genetics, that is where they spend their time looking at that. And me, it's just to say, okay, you've got fibromuscular dysplasia, it's affecting these arteries in this way, and this is what can be done to... As to whether it's gene number what of what, I'm not interested in that detail, you know. So, and I could see that he's not happy that I could not specify what gene and what have you and all, but then we ended at that. So, just like the first one where I was, the mother was denying, because with the first one that I was talking about before we went for a break, she said, no, because she went and Googled, checked.
Oh, yes.
And I had told her on the phone, I said, you're lucky because your child is a mild mucolipidosis.
Yes.
But if it's a mucolipidosis 3 and 4, they get deformed. They are nowhere. The brain does not even develop that much. So yours, you've got a mild one, but it's mucolipidosis.
Yes.
She said, are you sure it's not the child that the results, you're not mixing the results with the one that, because there was a child who was scanned before me and who looked like worse than my child, because my child attends, is in sport, is what, it's just these seizures that she was
not hearing it.
And then she ended up saying, can I book, can we come and see you on Tuesday, because I was still in Joburg. I was going to go to Joburg. Can we come and see you on Tuesday when you come to Joburg? Well, I said, of course, I mean, we must just check the bookings. And then I said, when you come, I want to test you and your husband.
Yeah.
Because I want to see who is the carrier. And she said, well, I don't know if it's the mother-in-law, but one of them is a doctor. Because now she started dangling that snake. I'm going to bring also my granny. I mean, my mother-in-law, and it's going to be my husband, my doctor. She mentioned the name. And I'm like, yes, like this lady, I wish she, I don't know. She is in such denial that now she is now doubting my diagnosis and even thinking I'm just talking hogwash now. She's going to threaten me with this snake of Dr. whatever, who's the relative or whatever. But I never actually treated her. I never went further with that particular case, because that is those are the dynamics that I come across. They're not many. It was just, I mean, like most people that come to me, you find they are ready to get answers.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not battling, because once the answer is, remember, I don't invent these conditions. It's not, these conditions are invented by other people. But I can detect them and say, oh, in your case, it's this particular condition. But I don't invent them, I don't create them. So other people have done all the work of studying, so I don't reinvent the wheel, because that's not my area. My area is to say, oh, this is what is happening. So because of time, I'm just going to leave it at these two, examples. But because we're going to continue with this show, and I give examples of cases where I have turned children around.
Sure.
Yeah, these two that I'm talking about, I never really treated. I'm just citing them because they're the ones where there was denial and it's too difficult for parents to accept, and yet I could do something about it. I could tend, even though this one that I said I was doubting whether I should actually treat her because of the risk of that bulging artery. My fear was rupturing. But I've treated cases, not of autistic, but I'm talking adults, where you find I can sort out the connective tissue and sort out the elasticity of that particular tissue and make it to come down and be a normal, elastic part again. So, but I'm just citing, those are the dynamics that I come across. But these are just, I've got a string of examples. So this autistic or autism show we're going to cover quite a lot, because I've got so many examples, not just of the conditions, the type of conditions that have led to them being diagnosed autistic, but show the results. And if possible, I will even see if some of the parents cannot send me the clips where they can see the difference that I've made in turning their children around.
Well, our last question is, what can people do if they have autistic children and they want to use your services?
Well, as usual, most people already know. They have to book. They have to book. Even though you find that some autistic children are actually very difficult to keep in one place, because remember, when we scan them, we want them to stay still.
Yes.
And you find they kicking, they screaming, even though I come across quite a few of them like that. But in some cases, I just need 15 minutes of the scan to start forming the pictures. Then that's enough for me as a departure point. So people must just book, and once I've scanned your child, then I'll be able to tell you an elaborate map of what is actually going on in your child's life. So you know where to reach us. Just make the booking and bring your child, whether in Port Elizabeth or in Johannesburg. But I promise you, you will be able to know what's going on with your child. Because of time, that's where we end up our show today. Thank you for watching. And send the questions. You can send them via Mpuma Kappa, you can send them directly to us. If you want me to cover certain parts of autism in the next shows, please feel free to send me the questions via social media or any other way, or you can phone or whatever. Then I'll be able to make sure I cover those questions. Other than that, thank you for watching and goodbye.
Thank you very much for coming on our journey with autism. It's been a fantastic show, very interesting, and I wish you the rest of the week to be a good week. Thank you.
Life and death are created and controlled by God, so is nature. Nature, therefore, provides all the healing properties necessary to service mankind. Even scientists are students of nature. In the chaos of coronavirus pandemic, nature has provided us with mystical rose oil. This oil is a combination of specially selected and blended essential oils like clove, eucalyptus, rosemary, and many more. The special selection and the skillful blending process gives a finished product of remarkable protection from coronavirus. You have tried everything to protect yourself, right? It's time you try mystical rose oil, the miraculous gift of nature.